Hey, what's up, students? It's Mr. Chang. Hope you guys are having a blast right now. You can see the summer heat's coming out, and we are well into June now. And this is our last unit, per se. And this week I'm going to cover simple interest and compound interest, just two lessons. And then next week we're going to be talking about annuities. Okay, and that's all we've really got planned for this course. We're just going to wrap it up. But the big thing we're trying to do as teachers is to make sure that you've got like a fair, learnings of math, so that at the next level you get to, what they teach is not going to be a surprise. You're going to be like, oh yeah, Mr. Tang kind of showed us some of this stuff, and I learned some of this stuff, so that's good, right? That's the goal. The goal of this lesson is we got to talk about simple interest. 7.1, simple interest. The goal here is to solve for the various factors involved in calculating simple interest. And simple interest is that sort of like that nice interest. That sort of interest is like, with your library is like, oh, you still got the book overdue? Well, it's 5 cents every day, so give us 5 cents every day. Well, what if it's like 20 days overdue? Well, it's 20 cents times 5, right? And you just gotta do that. It's the same amount every day, or the same amount every month, or same amount every year. It's not going to increase, and that's essentially what simple interest is, okay? It doesn't really exist too often, because as a mechanism for earning money off of money, it's not very effective, okay? What we call simple interest is really a linear function, right? Like a y is equal to mx plus b situation, because all we're really doing is raising it by the same amount every time, and charging the same amount every time. We're not going to make a lot of money, okay? And that really happens when we start talking about compound interest, and you guys are going to see that. That's exponential growth. But this is just linear growth. So let's get to it. Simple interest is the amount of money earned from only a principal amount of money, from what you start with. Okay, principal means what you started with, the original amount. And the formula for calculating simple interest is I is equal to PRT. Okay, some people call that I Prt. And what's everything mean? Well, the capital letter I represents the total amount of interest made. Okay, the total amount of interest made on the principal. Okay, P is the principal amount, what you started with. R is the interest rate converted to a decimal, right? Rates are typically given as a percentage, so you're going to have to divide it by 100 to turn it into a decimal. That's very important. And then T is the time, and that has to be expressed in years. We're going to go through, what to do when converting things to decimals and converting things to years, more like converting things to years, just to make sure you're okay with that. And that's it, okay? Another thing to add is we might talk about the accumulated value, okay? I could ask you, sure, you made, $10 off of it, but, including what you started with, which is let's say $100, and you made $10, what is it worth now? And that's what we call the accumulated value there, okay? Accumulated value, what is that worth now? You can see that that's the principal there, okay? What you started with. This is the original amount. And this is the interest earned, right? And we talk about savings mechanisms or financial mechanisms as there's really just two types. There's investment, where you're going to make money, okay, and that's always a good thing. Or there's also a loan, where you need to borrow money and somebody else is going to make money off of your butt, right? So you got to make sure that you know what I'm talking about, so that you have the perspective right. But the calculations are essentially the same anyways, okay? And we'll see that. Okay, before we can really get to some examples, we got to talk about what we have to do when we're converting things, okay? So if we need to convert time, okay, and that is something we need to do, because T, right up here, is the amount of time in years, we have to convert things into years, right? So if the question doesn't give you something in years, you're going to have to convert it in years. So to convert time, sometimes it's days, weeks, or months, to years, you want to divide by the amount of that unit in 1 year. So for instance, with days, let's just review it. There are 365 days in a year. Weeks, there are 52 weeks in a year. And months, there are 12 months per year. Okay? Per year, and per year. And if you think about that, 365 days in a year, that makes sense because you take 12 and you times it by like 30 days per month, and you're going to get like 12 times 3 is 360 already, right? You're going to get like 360 days, and that makes sense. Nobody's going to go, well, how many days are there in a year? Oh, there's 31. No, it's impossible, right? And then you go, well, how many weeks are in a year? Well, if there's 7 days in a week, and you know it's somewhere around 360 days in a year, you have 360 divided by 7, and you should get somewhere close to the number 52, right? And that should give you a ballpark understanding of how many days there are, or how many weeks there are in a year. And then if you talk about months, I think most of us know that there are 12 months in a year, not to get that confused or anything, okay? You know, January, February, March, and count that out on your fingers or your knuckles if you know that trick. Okay, so anyways, you have that divided by the amount of that unit in 1 year. So let's say we've got over here 80 days, and we want to convert this to an amount of years because you can't plug in 80 into the formula, or else the formula is going to think you're talking about 80 years. So what we need to do here is you take 80 days and you want to divide it by how many days in a year? There are 365 days per year, okay? And what happens over there is this will now become 80 divided by 365, which gives us 0.22, let's say, 0.22. What does that mean? It is 0.22 years is our answer there. 80 days is 0.22 years. Okay. What about 21 weeks over here? Okay. 21 weeks, well, we have to divide weeks because it's not in years. We've got to divide it by 52 weeks per year. And if you divide 21 by 52, we'll get 0.403846, which I'm going to call 0.4 years. 0.4 of a year is what 21 weeks is. And then lastly, if you want to convert months to years, you want to divide this by the amount of months there are in a year. That's 12 months per year, M per year, right? And 5 divided by 12 will put us at about 0.41666. Repeating, I'm going to call that 0.42 years. And this is how we get to years, okay? When you're given a different amount of units that's not years, like days, months, weeks, no problem. You want to convert it to years by simply dividing it by how many of that unit there are in a year. Okay? All right, let's talk about some examples. So I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to set up the question, and after the setup, I'll just pause it, and hopefully you can pause it, or if you want to follow along, you'll just see a little bit of a break, and then suddenly all the answers are going to appear, and you can just, pause it at that point and review all the steps, right? This way I can make a shorter lesson. It'll be a little bit more smooth for some people who want to follow that way. Let's see how that works. It says, find the simple interest. Look at that clue. Simple interest earned on $2,000 invested for 18 months at 4% annual interest. Okay, we got $2,000 invested at 18 months, 4% annual interest. Let's work this out. So the first thing I want to talk about is, did you notice it says simple interest, right? So obviously we are going to use the formula I is equal to PRT. P times R times T. Okay, find the simple interest. So we are actually looking for I here. That's good. We are trying to find I. On $2,000 invested, right? So we could tell that this is P. Let's write that down. P is equal to 2,000. That's how much you start with. I'll make that a little bit more clear. All right, you start with 2,000 bucks. Next thing we know is what about R? R is your rate is 4%. And of course, like if you remember, I said that's a percentage. We got to convert that to a decimal. So simply take 4 and you want to divide it by 100. Some people have a percent button on the calculator. That also works, right? But R as a percent turned into a decimal is simply 0.04. Okay, all right. Continuing on, time, T, let's plug that in. The time that we're talking about is in years. Well, the thing is, the time that they gave us is in months. So we got to take 18 months, and we're going to have to convert this to years by simply dividing it by 12 months per year. Okay, 12 months per year, and if you do that, you get 18 divided by 12, and is that 1.5? Oops, 1.5 years. Okay, so again, your rate's got to be in a decimal, your time's got to be in years, and if you have all that stuff, you got a p-value, you can actually just plug it in and calculate I. Okay, so I is equal to, let's write it out in substitution, 2,000 times R, which is 0.04, times T, which is 1.5. Okay, and I is equal to, and then there you go, right? 120 bucks. $120 was earned. Okay, so the other question that might actually pop up is the A value, right? If you look at this, the green part here, it says A is equal to P plus I. This is what I'm asking you, well, how much money do you actually have, right? Well, you started off with the 2,000 bucks, right? And then you made 120 bucks. So a lot of people go, yeah, it's 2,120. But how do you show that, right? So we're looking for the total or accumulated amount. So we are talking about A, okay? What is the total amount? Well, the total amount is, as I said over here, P plus I. So we're going to write that P plus I. Okay, and so if you've got P and if you've got I, you should be able to have the answer. So let's just pause it and I'll show you the answer. There you go. All right, plugged in and calculated. 2,120 bucks. That's how much the investment will be worth. It earned 120, but it will be worth 2,120. Okay? All right. Let's keep it going. All right, let's talk about kind of like some real life stuff. This is credit cards. They charge a lot of interest. It's borderline criminal how much they're going to make. It's what we call predatory loaning. Think about the root word like a predator. They are preying on you to make as much money off of you as possible. A lot of you guys dream of the day that you get a credit card. I dream of the day that you guys become mature and then get a credit card. Otherwise, it will not be a good time. 29.9% is a typical annual rate of interest charged on a credit card. Okay, and how much interest would you owe on a balance of $10,000 carried for 14 months? Okay, so we are talking about simple interest because this is the simple interest chapter over here. So I want you to talk about simple interest. We are talking about the formula being I is equal to PRT, right? P times R times T. Let's see what we're working with. The question is asking you how much interest. Okay, that's actually asking for I. That's good. That's asking for I. Okay, what is I? When they give you the rate right here, they give you the what you start with, which is here, P, and they give you T, which is right there, 14 months. Okay, let's take a moment and have you write out what P, R, and T is underneath. Okay, you might have to do some converting, and then you're going to just substitute and give me the answer for I. How much interest will you owe? Okay, I'll pause it. Okay, have a look at this. P, 10,000. R, 0.299. T, 1.166666. Repeating, I took a shortcut, turned it to 1.17 just to make the calculation a little bit quicker, and came up with 3,498.30. Those of you guys who use 1.166666, you are better than me. and you probably have a more accurate answer, okay? But I think we will be pretty close anyways. Good. All right. That's how you get that. There's your answer. Boom. Let's talk about the next part. This is going to be a little bit more complicated. Let's see if you can do it. If you earned $1,078.77 in interest on a $5,000 investment over 900 days, what was the annual interest rate? Rate. R. Okay. All right. Maybe I'll help you out with the setup first. You earned $1,078.77 in interest on a $5,000 investment over 900 days. What was the annual interest rate? Okay, so we are looking for R. Okay, I'm trying to find that. You earned $1,078.77. Well, that is I, capital I. In interest on a $5,000 investment, that's your P, and invested over 900 days, this is T. All right, let's see you start off with the formula, okay? And that formula is I is equal to PRT. And at this point, you can do your calculations. You might want to do some algebra to move some of the variables from one side to the other and calculate the rate. One more little trick is that rate needs to be in a percent form. Okay, so I'll freeze it and I'll reveal the answer. Okay, there you go. Let me do a breakdown here. So we got the values for I, we've got P, we've got R. Actually, we don't have R. We've got T, which is in days, so we have to divide it by 365 days in a year. And we get 2.47, roughly, okay? And then we're going to plug it into the formula and to calculate R, which is our goal. So if you look at the original formula, I is equal to PRT, we're going to have to divide out the P and the T from the R, so we can isolate the R. Okay, and we're left with this situation: I over PT is equal to R, or R is equal to I over PT. Okay, let me highlight that for you guys. This is an important point to get to. And once you have there, then you're going to plug in. Okay, substitute, and make sure you, on your calculators, prevent yourself from going 1,078 divided by 0.77 divided by 5,000 and then times 2.47. You don't want to do that. You want to make sure that the calculator understands that you want 5,000 times 2.47 underneath. So you might want to put this all in brackets first on your calculator and just write 5,000 times 2.47, in your calculator, and that'll make sure it's 1,078.77 divided by all of that business, which would give you this 0.0873, which actually is the rate as a decimal, okay? But you know that in the word problem, we would express the rate as a percentage, so we just need to multiply it back by 100% to get it to 8.73%. Okay, give yourself a pat on the back if you understand how to do this. And what you could do is just kind of like rewind it and see if you could do it yourself and arrive at this very same answer again. Okay, and that's just a good way of reinforcing it. Okay, practice over and over, getting the right steps. We got one more question to do. Let me see if I can just set it up for you. It says, for the fun of it, Angel invested $50 into an investment earning 5% annually. Sometime later, Angel received an email stating that her investment is now worth $500. How much time has passed? Okay, I want to know that time in years, but I want to know how much time has passed. Okay, so let's talk about what we're working with here. Angel invested $50. It's an investment and it earns 5% annually. Okay. Sometime later, Angel gets an email stating that her investment is now worth $500 in total. How much time has passed? So what are we needing to calculate here? Okay. So Angel invested $50 into an investment. That is her P. Okay, you can think principal, primary amount that she started with. It's earning 5%. That is your rate, R. Okay, it's now worth $500. Is that capital I? No, it is not the amount of interest earned. It is A, the total accumulated value. The original amount plus any interest in the account is sitting $500. Accumulated value. And then I'm asking you for time here, T. Okay, part. Okay, so if you see that A there, it's bringing up a little bit of a wrinkle. You got to talk about that green formula first. Okay, A is equal to P plus I. So let's start with that. Because you want to figure out how much time is involved, right? How much time passed. So, like, okay, let's go. I is equal to PRT, right? This is a formula you essentially want to work with because you want to figure out time. All right, so if I was to rearrange this, I could divide out the PR on both sides, and I'm going to get T is equal to I divided by PR. Okay, T is equal to I divided by PR. All right. Let's see if we have everything we need, right? And this is where you try to take account of what you're working with. And if you go like, look, do we have I? No, I is actually unknown. Okay, do we have P? Yep, we got $50. Have we got R? Yep, 5%, right? Of course, we're going to divide this by 100. And we're going to turn this into 0.05. But we don't have I. Okay, so how much interest was earned? $50. It ends up being $500. Obviously, it's $450. But how do we communicate that with algebra? You got to bring it back to that original formula. And we're going to say, look, first off, A is equal to P plus I. Right? If I remove the P from this side to the other side, I'm going to get A subtract P is equal to I. And that's where I need to go because I is equal to A. Let me just rearrange it, subtract P. I is equal to, what's the A? It's 500 and the P is 50 and the I is $450. That's how you communicate that. Okay, so now we've got I, check. Put in a big check mark. We've got P, check. And we've got R. And we're going to figure out T. So let's do it. So T is equal to 450, which is I, divided by P, which is 50, and R, which is 0.05. That's the 5% as a decimal. T is equal to 450 divided by, and this is where I'm saying use a bracket, 50 times 0.05, right? Just to make sure the calculator understands exactly what you want. And lo and behold, I got 180. What did we figure out? Well, this actually is in years. Okay? Therefore, Angel, how much time? Angel received the email. The email 180 years later. Angel by then may actually be an angel. All right, 180 years. Maybe modern medicine is going to change, and we are all going to live forever. And we're still going to be using emails, right? But yeah, 180 years later, she gets this. The reason why I thought about this question is actually it came from Fry from what's that show, The Future? Yeah, it's going to come to me. Anyways, he ends up getting cryogenically frozen. He had a bank account where he had like $2 in it, and he wakes up like 1,000 years later, and it turns out that it's worth $1 trillion, and he found out he was very, very rich because of that. Anyways, hope this message finds you guys well. We've got the practice questions right here, page 95 to 96, 3, 4, 6, 8, and that's that. Okay, actually, for simple Let me correct that. For simple interest, there's a worksheet for you to do. Worksheet, please. Okay, do the worksheet. All right. Take care. Bye, guys.